It's an exciting day for the Washington Capitals as the 20th head coach in franchise history is being welcomed to the nation's capital. It's a picturesque day outside and a picturesque day inside the brand new District E powered by Ticketmaster. The Capitals rolling out the red carpet for Carbery and family. The introductory press conference for the new bench boss is just moments away. Well, everything is about Spencer Carbery today as the local media, season ticket holders and sponsors have made their way inside of District E, powered by Ticketmaster. In just moments, we'll welcome the 20th head coach in franchise history. We are excited to be with you here live. I'm Alexa Landestoy alongside Alan May. And Alan, the wait is finally over. Spencer started his coaching career in the Washington Capitals system and is now the head coach of the Caps.
He is, and it's probably a very extensive interview process. When you look, there was a different general manager when he started in South Carolina, but Brian McClellan was here, Don Fishman was here, Jason Fitzsimmons, and the cast of other management, Chris Patrick, you name them. And so they know him very, very well. So, you know, when you look at the interview process, they interviewed a lot of other people, but they really didn't have all the background that they did have on Spencer. A lot of years in South Carolina, years in Hershey, and then a couple of years at the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Well, we're super excited for this day. Coached in Hershey, coached in South Carolina, and now with the Washington Capitals. The wait is finally over. Let's send it over to Joe Bennati, the Master of Ceremonies.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks very much for making time for us today. I am Joe Bennati, the TV voice of the Washington Capitals, and it's my pleasure to welcome members of our local sports media, season ticket holders, sponsors, other VIPs who are here with us at District E, as well as all the Caps faithful who are watching and listening on NBC Sports Washington, 106.7 The Fan, and the Capitals' social channels. We are about to formally introduce you to the new head coach of the Caps, but before we meet the man who becomes, as Alexa mentions, the 20th NHL head coach here in D.C., I wanted to offer a brief commendation to the organization for its continued success with development. Throughout my close to 30 years with this team, I've witnessed the development of outstanding players on the ice, as well as executives, managers, and coaches in the offices, on the air, and behind the bench. For 8 seasons, today's guest of honor worked his way up the Capitals' coaching ladder from within. With more background on the coach and more input on how this coaching decision was made, it's time to introduce Capitals Senior Vice President and General Manager Brian McClellan. Brian, please describe for us the process that went into this coaching search, and from your past experiences with him in South Carolina and in Hershey, let us know about the best attributes that Spencer brings to the organization.
Thanks, Joe. First of all, I'd like to formally congratulate Spencer and his family on becoming an NHL head coach. I know how hard he's worked at it, and I think it's a pretty big deal to have a dream come true for him. Building on Joe's point also, I think it's important that we do recognize our affiliates, South Carolina and Hershey, not only for developing players, but for developing relationships that we've had throughout the 3 organizations. You know, Rob Kincannon, here's the president of South Carolina, has done an excellent job in developing coaches, putting them, finding high-quality character guys, putting them in a position to succeed and move up to the American League and then to the NHL. I think it's a testament to the organization he runs down there. Also, Brian Helmer in Hershey does an excellent job of taking care of our people, continuing to establish relationships, and it just makes us a stronger organization overall. I think most people here are aware of Spencer's resume over the past several years, highly successful at the East Coast League level, the AHL level, as a head coach. Another important part, I think, for his development and for us getting a more finished product is that he's spent the last 2 seasons in Toronto. He's led Toronto's power play, from middle of the road power play to the top 2 power play in the NHL. He's done a great job there, so I think that's a natural fit for what we're looking forward going forward. I know Spencer, and he's a hard worker. He's a real good communicator. He's demonstrated an ability to work with players at every level, at the East Coast League level, the ability to work with high-end NHL players. So he possesses a lot of the qualities that I think we were looking for in a head coach. But beyond the resume, I think the main reason here we're here today and hired Spencer is a high level of trust and comfort for both parties. We have a number of people that have relationships with Spencer throughout the organization, player development guys, pro scouts, amateur scouts. He's been around our team and rookie camps, player development camps, training camps. So I think we're very comfortable in knowing the person and what he's going to bring to our organization. So in conclusion, I think we feel very fortunate that we feel we've signed one of the best young coaches in the game, and we're proud to have him here today.
Brian, thank you very much for your insight. We appreciate it. No need to wait any longer. Let's turn the microphone over to the man himself, a 41-year-old native of Victoria, British Columbia, Canada, a past Coach of the Year recipient in the ECHL and in the AHL, who is now about to make his opening statement as the new head coach of the Washington Capitals. Please welcome Spencer Carbery.
Thank you. Well, just what an incredible week. Welcome to DC. Today has been phenomenal thus far, and I just first want to say what an absolute pleasure and honor it is for me and my family to be sitting here and be named the new head coach of the Washington Capitals organization. A couple people I just quickly want to thank that I think it's important to acknowledge, Mr. Leonsis, Mr. Dick Patrick, and obviously Brian, not only for believing in me, but also entrusting in me to lead this great franchise into the future. The next, I would be absolutely remiss. My family is here, and my wife Casey, son Hudson, and daughter Vivian, and I've taken them on quite the journey over the last 13 years and toted them around this continent. So their support, I'm nowhere near sitting here without their continued support of me and my coaching career over the last 13 years. And I also just want to quickly thank the Toronto Maple Leafs organization for being so gracious in allowing me to pursue an opportunity to be a head coach at the National Hockey League level. I just want to thank them for allowing me to pursue that. And lastly, I'll just sort of just tell you, beyond excited to roll my sleeves up and get to work for this organization, this community, this fan base, and our players. And I'm going to put everything I've got into this organization and the community, the players. I'm going to do everything I possibly can to make this team a group on the ice that we can be proud of, not only as an organization, but our fan base, the community, everybody around it. That's our team. We're proud of that group and what it looks like, and just such a privilege and an honor to lead that group. Thank you very much.
Spencer, thank you, and welcome aboard. Best wishes to you and Casey, Hudson, and Vivian. Vivian, before too long, we're going to talk about that headband. It's going to look wonderful on either me or Locker, one way or the other. Haven't figured that out just yet. We're about to invite questions now for Spencer and Brian from the media who are here in attendance. Folks, please raise your hands. We'll have microphones brought to you. You know the drill. Please give your name and your affiliation, and then fire away. Who's up first? I see hands. I see Tarek.
Hi, Tarek El-Bashir of The Athletic. Spencer, this is for you. This is kind of a team in transition right now. They've got an older core, but they're also trying to mix in some younger players. What is your vision for getting this team on track?
So I think there's a mix, right? And I think my job coming in here, we have a highly motivated group of veteran players, leadership group, and we also have a group of players that it's my job to bring along and integrate into that group of young players like you referred to. So that, to me, is exciting. You have young players that are hungry to prove that they're capable National Hockey League players, and then you've got a group of veteran players that feel like they got a bit of a chip on their shoulder and they're ready to prove something that we are still a very strong team in the National Hockey League. So that experience in that in lower leagues and dealing with that, but that's the mixer. That's what I'm trying to bring together and make sure that we compete at a real high level.
Oh, hey, Barry.
Hey, Barry Sperluga from the Washington Post. I guess Brian had posed that question to you. You've got a head coach that's only 4 years older than your captain. We know the development side. What did you see in him in terms of leading the core that you've established here, the older core?
Yeah, I think our older core is coming in motivated this year, given what went on last year. I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think Spencer's experience in Toronto, dealing with established, highly skilled players running a high-end power play, I think that level of relationship, that level of communication, I think it's a skill he's learned over the last 2 years, and I think it's applicable to what's going on with us. We'll have the same type of players, and I think he's had experience doing that. So I think, in the end, I think he's a blend of, having a strong background in development and being able to coach high-end players too. So it's a good fit.
Spencer, Tom Gallitti, NHL.com. Just, it sounded like there were other teams that were interested in you. What made this the right fit for you to come here? And Brian mentioned mutual trust. Is that a big part of that?
Oh, without question. As I went through the process with my family, this has always felt right for me, this organization, the people that I have relationships with, the way they treat players, the players that they value. So as I went through it, everything kept drawing me to this organization and to Brian, and hopefully getting an opportunity to be the head coach here. And that, so there is absolutely that came into the process.
Charlotte McBride with the CBS affiliate here in D.C. You mentioned, the groups of veterans on this team, the younger guys. I know you know some of the younger guys from your days in Hershey. Have you had a chance to talk with any of the veterans? Did anybody call you after you got this job? Have you spoken with any of them?
Yeah, I've spoken with quite a few so far, and just touching base with them. I have a prior relationship with even a lot of the veteran players from being around over the years, but just starting to touch base with them, some relationship building stuff in there, and figure out what they saw, where we need to go, things that we can improve on, just gather information. And that's my number one objective as I start, is gather information. So now we can make good decisions. What happened? Where are we at? What do we feel we need to do, from everywhere, from training camp to practices to games? It all is important for me to listen, and then we can make real strong quality decisions as we go through and figuring out what we need to do as a team and how we're going to play and all that type of stuff.
And just a quick follow-up, how much will you lean on some of these veteran guys who have been with this team for so long, with their leadership and kind of the early stages of this?
Oh, a ton, because not only have they lived it and played it, but they're champions. They've won a Stanley Cup here, and their opinions, what they see, it's important, especially as a head coach, to take that in. Now I have to make decisions, but it's important that they are going to set the tone. And you touch on that, and I would attach that to the development part as well. It's our job as a coaching staff to come in and help these young players get caught up to speed as quickly as possible. It's also the responsibility of our leadership group. They have a big part in how can we get these young players ready to play and playing in a winning culture. And that's what I will specifically lead on our leadership group a lot and challenge them to do a good job in that department.
Hey, Spencer. Ben Raby with the Capitals radio broadcast. Identity is often a buzzword with new coaching hires. I'm curious the identity you envision for the team, and maybe if you could describe your coaching style and how you feel it might mesh with the personnel you have.
Yeah, from watching and my philosophies on the ice, the two words that I think I'll use a lot early on is pace and being connected. And a lot of people equate pace with speed, and for me, pace is a little bit different than just straight players that can skate fast and playing quick. Like, pace for me is you can show that with the puck and without. Like our puck pressure, our neutral zone, our D zone puck pressure, our forecheck, and then with the puck, like, we will talk constantly about our pace and playing at a higher pace and getting up the ice with and without the puck and putting pressure when we don't have it, let's get it back, and then getting on the attack pace-wise. And then the other part of that, the connected term that I use, I think is important that we have 5 guys on the ice that are on the same page with what we're doing. And we've got to be really connected as we move up the ice, and I won't get into all the X's and O's, but the connected term is something that I'll use a lot with our group of making sure that 5 guys are on the same page with how the puck is going to transport from our end to the other end or vice versa.
Sammy Silver from the Hockey News. Hi, Spencer. Welcome. Just looking at your resume, you've worked with some of the young guys still in the system. You've worked with McMichael. You worked with Carbery. Just how good is it going to be to reconnect with them and also help guys like McMichael who are trying to make the full-time jump next year?
Absolutely. I'm excited to work with them again. I have great relationships with all those young players, and I'm like, I'm watching some of them play down in Hershey right now and try to compete for a Calder Cup, and every time I watch or hear, and it's a smile on my face because I'm really happy of where their journey and their development and where they've come because of that prior relationship, and Marty being up here and his ability to get into the National Hockey League and be a quality player right away. So I'm excited to work with those guys again. Like I said, those relationships will help speed up the process of getting to know them and them understanding what I expect. So yeah, like I said, very excited to work with those young guys again.
Hey, Spencer, Roman Stubbs from the Washington Post. I'm just curious, the last 2 years in Toronto, specifically that market and just that franchise and the pressure that's associated with the Toronto Maple Leafs, how that prepared you as a coach and got you ready for this opportunity.
I took hundreds of things from that experience over the last 2 years. And you touched on anything from just simply the market and the media and the prep, all of that stuff. For me, especially in an assistant role where I've been a head coach for a long, long time, it gives me a ton of time and opportunity to observe and take in information and see how things are done. Some things I'll bring here with me and I feel strongly about, and other things I might not do, but you're able to see a different organization in a pressure market like you talked about and learn a ton of different things from that, and then obviously working with the players, staff in that organization.
How do you look at the Caps power play? You've got the best to ever do it who is in that one spot where he always shoots from and always scores from, but it hasn't really had the success that maybe the team has needed from it over the past couple of seasons. How do you kind of balance, keeping Ovi happy and keeping him kind of where he is and getting it going again?
Yeah, that'll be a major focus of mine, and as we look to round out the staff, specifically with the X's and O's part of it, I've followed their power play or our power play very, very closely over the last 2 years, watched them all. I think there's some things that we can do there. I think a lot of what you're talking about, like some personnel stuff coming in and out constantly causes a little bit of disruption to that. But a very, very important part that you touch on that we will have to make sure that we're paying close attention to, and we make quality decisions, like I said, in terms of our staff and what the direction and what we're trying to accomplish as a group as it relates to the power play.
And if I could follow up, you've been around Alex Ovechkin for a long time. Here over the next couple of years, he's going to, be at the center of the sports universe. You'll be on the bench as he's chasing down Gretzky. Has that kind of hit you yet? And what do you think about that?
What I think of is it's a huge responsibility for me as a head coach, and I've watched and saw his greatness up close and indirectly, and I take a lot of responsibility in that. And now, so it's my job as a head coach to put him in situations where he can be successful, and that's what my challenge is. And I don't take that lightly at all, and that'll work into how we play as a group. But that'll be one of my focuses: is how do we put him in situations to succeed.
Spencer, Brandon Alter with Caps Outsider. When you were hired in South Carolina in 2011, did you think, a little bit more than a decade later, you'd be the coach of Washington?
I cannot say that I did. I'll be honest with you, but I've said it many times. I've been indirectly stepped away from the organization for a few years at different points, but I've always had a connection to this organization and this team. And I just tried to do, back then, you're just trying to do the best possible job you can for the South Carolina Stingrays. And the other part is you're trying to get better as a coach. And so you're trying to gather information from the team in the AHL, the Hershey Bears, and that's why I've been, sorry to pivot a little bit, but that's why I've been so fortunate as a young coach, is I've learned from some unbelievable coaches, having been around Bruce Boudreau to Barry Trotz, and then in Boston's organization. I feel so fortunate because I'm able to take all of this different stuff and almost steal it to be able to use it and go, that is a great idea. I would do that as a head coach. I would use this. I would systematically, culture-wise. And so that's a lot of why I think I just feel so lucky to have been in our organization and learned from some great people, and then also step away and gain some more knowledge as well.
Brian, can we get back to the process real quick? Did you identify Spencer early on after you parted ways with Peter? And did you at all consider, you've hired really veteran coaches before. Did you consider guys who had been NHL coaches?
Yeah, I think we sat down as a group. We identified candidates that we thought, might have a possibility with us. Talked about, weaknesses and strengths of certain coaches that are out there and might be available. Pursued some to varying degrees. Background check with people in the game and that. Spencer came out on top, from day one. Again, the history, the comfort level. I think, we wanted to interview a couple other candidates, and we did. And Spencer was going through his process at the same time. So, we were hopeful that, we'd found a match, but you never know as it plays itself out what could happen in interviews and what could happen with other organizations. And fortunately, it worked out for us at the end.
Mac, I drove to Hershey last night to talk to people who've worked with Spencer, and I would say the common theme was energy and intensity. Would occasionally chirp his players, for making a bad pass or not catching one. Some of the stories were pretty funny. How important was it for you to bring in some young blood and some energy and vivaciousness?
Yeah, I think it's same on the personnel side. We're looking to add younger players. We have an opportunity to get one of the better young coaches in the game. I think it's going to permeate throughout our organization. I think we're in a transition period here, and we're trying to make the best of it and see where it goes from here.
Spencer, what's the challenge of getting this team back to the playoffs? You see how competitive the Eastern Conference is, and there's some young teams that are upcoming. Capital are trying to stay up there. Pittsburgh is trying to stay up there. How do you get this team back to the playoffs in this conference?
It's no question it's going to be a daily challenge because of, like you talked about, the competitiveness, the difficulty to make the playoffs. But that's what my job is I've got to get to work immediately on how do we, like we've talked about, a young group or a younger group that's coming in and pushing, and blend that together with a veteran group that has proven a lot and are phenomenal players. And so I think the way I look at it is you have to keep that in perspective, right? Is there's a lot of proud, highly competitive champions on our roster that are going to want to prove that we can still do that. And that's where my focus will go. How we actually do that on a day-to-day basis, we'll get to work immediately on that. How we need to play, like I talked about, of us being on the same page, X's and O's wise, and then us culturally, which will be a strong part of our group. It always has been in this team, is us pushing each other, young and old, to get back and get back in the playoffs, and that's our challenge, and that's what we'll get to work on immediately.
Hi, Spencer. Matt Paris from the Washington Times. Wondering, given your ties to the organization and kind of how used to you are being a head coach, how tough was it to leave for Toronto a few years ago, or was that just a jump you feel like you needed to make to be an assistant? Yeah,
it was a really difficult decision, but one that I felt. I never played in the National Hockey League. I hadn't coached there yet, and I thought it was a tremendous opportunity to go be a part of a Original Six franchise, coach a Powerplay, a team that was right there trying to push to make the next step. And so it was a difficult decision, but one that I felt like, A, I could help their organization, and B, me personally, I felt like it would help a lot in my development to one day hopefully become an NHL head coach. And that's the way I looked at it, and like I touched on, I won't go into it again, but just now taking all the value out of those 2 years, we ended up falling short of reaching our end goal, but took a lot out of my experience there the last 2 years.
Hey, Spencer. Matt Wire from NBC Sports Washington. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Lots made about the success you had with that power play group in Toronto. What do you kind of credit as the turnaround there, and what are kind of some of the factors that you might be able to bring over to this power play group that has seen a lot of success in years past?
Yeah, I won't get into like too much of the specifics of there, but we worked hard at it. There were some certain things that I brought to that group and ideas that I had, and blended that with the way that those guys saw things, and they wanted to do things, and again, very, very similar of grabbing input from all those great players there, and trying to create a foundation of how we were going to do things is what we focused on. And but yeah, like I said, it was a great experience. Took a lot from it, and a lot of those things, like you're touching on, from a foundational little things that we did really well. Absolutely, those things are things that will translate, and things that I can take and hopefully bring to our group, and hopefully will be able to be integratable into our team and our power play specifically, like you're talking about.
Ali Barubi, ABC 27 in Harrisburg. Tarek also didn't say, they all said you hate to lose in Hershey, so that was a big part of it. You're a testament to the development. How important is it now to lead this organization in that development and making sure guys are coming from South Carolina, Hershey, up here to Washington? It's really important that we're able to develop through the organization and hopefully create those tiers of where guys are able to come up and play for the Washington Capitals and contribute in a winning culture. And that was always what I did in Hershey, and that's, you touch on the competitiveness, and that's like, I didn't answer the second part of a question over here, my style as a coach, and what I feel like it's a blend of this, is being a strong communicator. That's, our players will know exactly what the expectations are. They'll know exactly where they need it. The communication with our group, that's right here for me. And the other part of that, which I feel like is the balance for me as a coach, is motivating the group, pushing the group.
setting a high standard and expecting us to always meet that standard, and that's a part of it. So being able to communicate, relate, talk to them, help, do anything you possibly can to help our guys get better and know what they need to do, and then push the group as a whole. That personally, style-wise, and I know I go off track a little bit, but that's me. And to answer your question, them moving up and us developing players that can step into the Washington Capitals lineup is critical.
Hey, Spencer. Welcome back. Just Kendall Griggs, 7 News, DC. Just for you personally, going from playing in a D3 school like St. Norbert, what's it mean for you to go from those playing days all the way up to head coach of the NHL? What's that mean for you?
I'm not a huge reflect back, think about things, but it is pretty surreal to think, and even bouncing around in the minor leagues and not really didn't have this plan. Like a lot of coaches have a specific plan of how they're going to, when they retire, are going to do X, Y, Z, and that just wasn't the way my path played out. So it is pretty surreal to think back on some of the times in Division III college and played at a great program at St. Norbert, and then bouncing around the minor leagues from team to team, and now being the head coach of the Washington Capitals.
We've covered a lot of ground. I'm looking at Alex. I'm looking at Chase. Any more questions for either Brian or Spencer? Appreciate it. Brian and Spencer, thank you very, very much. Spencer, as you get more connected to the team, all of us in this room look forward to connecting with you, and we wish you all the very best. That's going to conclude our program for the day here at District E. For those local affiliates who will be conducting one-on-one interviews, those will happen shortly by the trophy cases, the digital boards. To all of you here at District E, and to those watching and listening on NBC Sports Washington, 106.7 The Fan, and the Caps social channels, thank you very much for your time and your concentration, and have a great rest of the day.
Well, you just heard the first remarks from the Capitals' brand new head coach, Spencer Carbery. And Alan, I was taking some notes, some of the quotes that jumped off the page to me. GM Brian McClellan talking about high level of trust and comfort that Spencer was already in the system. And something that stood out to me in Spencer's opening remarks, he had a huge smile and said, I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and get to work with this team and get everything that I've got. And that's what I think a lot of Capitals fans are excited to hear.
Oh, absolutely. And it's only June right now, June 1st. But the biggest thing, on the scouting reports that I got from everyone I spoke with, here this stands out. He speaks extremely well and should be excellent with the media. I'd say he handled that part very, very well so far. But high-quality person, and that carries over into his professional life as a head coach, assistant coach, as a hockey lifer, basically. So I think there's boatloads of experience, even though he's not 55, 60, 65 years old. He's a young 41 coach in the National Hockey League. But this will be his 14th stop in his hockey journey, and it's been every level from junior hockey in British Columbia, collegiate hockey, NCAA, and a couple different stops, the minor leagues in the West Coast, the East Coast, the Central League, and then you look getting into the American Hockey League, coaching in the ECHL, then the AHL, and then the National Hockey League as assistant, and now here. I think all of that experience really, really matters, and he can draw back on how you communicate at every level with the younger players and the older players, because even in the ECHL and the AHL, you do have grumpy old veterans and you've got stubborn veterans, and he's the kind of guy that will be able to come in here with this incredible roster of aging superstars in Alexander Ovechkin, Nicholas Backstrom, Evgeny Kuznetsov, John Carlson, and TJ Oshie, Tom Wilson. You take those guys, I think he's going to know how to communicate with them and bring a lot of his enthusiasm to the game.